November is Men's Mental Health Month.
And more specifically, November 19th is Men's Mental Health Day.
Over 6 million men suffer from depression per year,
with 40% of them never speaking to anyone about their mental health.
However, no matter what pronoun you identify as,
mental health is important and affects every gender.
But as two males, we wanted to share our own experiences and speak about it with you today, even if that meant coming out of our comfort zones.
Please make sure to check in on those close to you, whether they are a loved one or a close friend.
And if you yourself are struggling, please be sure to reach out to a professional or speak to those close to you.
There's also multiple mental health charities that you can find online.
Alright lads, welcome back to MidweekMC, the part of the podcast where I sit down with the very amazing co-host, Captain AJX, to waffle about things that happen in Minecraft this week, things that happen in Minecraft in general, or just topics in general. And this week we are talking about something a bit more serious. I made a tweet, not last Saturday for you listeners, but the Saturday beforehand. The next two podcasts are going to be more serious topics, with the second one being a bit more hard-hitting. Last week's podcast was about Asexual Disability Day, and this week's podcast is about mental health. How are you doing today, Ajax?
Hello, I'm okay, thank you, good sir. Thank you.
Are you sure that you're good?
Yes, thank you. Yes, of course. How are you, good sir?
I am doing good. It's been a long day. It's been a very long day, but viva la InsideMC, or in this case, viva la MidweekMC, right?
Yes, exactly.
So to start the podcast off with in the right way, or the best way possible. So I woke up at 5:30 a.m. this morning. I left my house at 6:30 a.m. I had to go all the way to Watford, bearing in mind I live in London. Got there at 8 o'clock, worked until 4, went to Watford Football Stadium. The travelling there was great. I got seats on every train. It was nice, it was quiet, it was chill. On the way home, however, honestly, if this isn't a joke, this is dead serious by the way, if I had to travel like that in London every single day, it really wouldn't be good for my mental health. I honestly don't know how people do it. It's horrible. It's actually one of the worst experiences is traveling in London at that time, because it's during the rush hour, right? And people are just so arrogant and people are just so rude, and it's I just want to go home, and you're probably going home as well, you know. And then there's people stopping and starting in front of you, but it was good practice though, because when I go to Birmingham in March, I wonder why I'm going to Birmingham at the end of March, AJ. It's actually from London Euston, so it's quite cool because it's actually the same train I got today to go to Watford. So it was a good little bit of practice of how to get there and knowing what train I'm going to get. It'll be on a different platform. There's going to be a train that takes more stops. It's actually the one I got home technically. But yeah, other than that, it's actually been a really good day. I for anyone who's wondering as to what happened, I had to go all the way to Watford because I agreed to cover somebody for work. So yeah, that's all I'll say before I accidentally talk to myself here. Well, what about yourself, AJX? Anything interesting happened to you today?
No, just as you say, work. I work at home from Wednesdays to Fridays and in an office on Mondays and Tuesdays. So quite nice not having to travel, because I travel a long time to go to the office. So it's quite nice having a lie-in on a Wednesday to Friday, because it is a long journey. So I'm up very early. So yes, it's a long day at work, but I'm glad to be here on the InsideMC podcast.
I mean, it must be really hard work, because every single time I'm on Discord and I message you, you're always on Football Manager. So it must be a really, really tough job. Nah. I know how hard you work, AJ.
You're gonna get me fired. You're gonna get me fired.
No. I'm surely your work colleagues don't listen to this, right? Yeah. Maybe. In all seriousness, this week's podcast is talking about mental health. In case you didn't know already, this month is classed as Movember. It's Men's Mental Health Month, right? And I'm assuming I've got the pronouns right here. It'd be very bad if I didn't. We are both males, AJX.
Yes.
And even then, it's not even just that. Yes, this is Men's Mental Health Month, but mental health, everybody has it, right? Everybody, not everybody, I guess you can say, but a lot of people, no matter what gender, no matter what pronouns, everybody, people, and every gender, there we go, every pronoun suffers with mental health, right? And I have I've had pretty bad mental health. Yourself has, AJ, so that's why we wanted to talk about it today, you know. Also, what was you going to
Yes,
say there?
exactly.
Sorry, I didn't cut you
I
off.
was going to say everyone has mental health. It just depends on the extent of issues with mental health.
And
Can
how
definitely
you can handle it
cause-
as well.
Yeah.
Which I've definitely improved on over the years, and I'm quite proud of myself for doing so. And
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, before we do start, one last thing. I'm not meaning to delay it here on purpose. We were meant to be joined with Bendo today, just to clear up any confusion, because I remember saying on stream that we're going to be joined with Bendo. Sadly, scheduling conflicts, and we're all so busy. You know, Bendo uni, AJX work, myself work, myself editing the podcast, AJX making plans, Bendo making plans. That's why I tend to record at 7 p.m. every day and tend to record on a Wednesday, because it's very hard to change it to a different day. So sadly, Bendo's not with us this week. However, I am looking to get them on a podcast in the future for something back on, because you know, it was great talking to them either in December, January at one point, but they will be back on MidweekMC. But this week is just myself and AJX talking about mental health. There we go. I think that was a pretty good intro, right? Yeah, that's pretty.
Perfect intro.
So, I actually don't really have a basis for this podcast. We planned out how the intro was going to go, but I didn't actually really plan out on this. I think basically, lads, we're just going to have a talk, right? We're just going to talk to each other, check in on each other, you know, just talk about how we've suffered, or I guess you can say suffered, yeah, and just how we struggled. There we go.
Yeah.
I think struggled is a better word. So I guess we'll start with me, because this was more kind of my idea for the podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
I just want to double check the date here so I don't get the wrong one. It is on, so Men's Mental Health Day specifically is on November 19th. All right, so this podcast is going to be coming out on November 15th, because it's on a Sunday, November 19th, so I made sure to have it out before Men's Mental Health Day. On Google, the description is literally, this day provides an opportunity to promote discussions and actions that support men's physical and mental health, encourage positive role models, and advocate for a more inclusive society. Obviously, myself and AJX, we aren't professionals, we aren't counselors, we aren't like trained, I guess, in this field. However, we are going to talk about our experiences. We're going to talk about, like, give a little bit of example to the best of our ability of what you can do, what we did, I guess, to help us improve. And you know, hopefully somebody who's listening to this, they can, you know, maybe they've gone through the same thing, maybe you've gone through the same thing, or maybe a friend of yours is going through the same thing. And, like, you know, always check in, see how at the start of the podcast I made sure AJX was alright, sorry, yeah, it was part of the bit, but, like, still, you know, like, just because somebody says they're okay doesn't always mean they're okay, you know?
Yes.
Like, if you're close enough with somebody, you'll know when them being like, yeah, I'm alright, isn't actually them being alright. Obviously, you can't tell for everyone, and I know a lot of people who listen to the podcast are like myself and have online friends, and of course it's very, very hard if, like, an online friend is suffering with mental health, because sometimes you feel a bit hopeless, sometimes you feel a bit helpless, not hopeless, just say sorry, and, like, you know, because obviously you don't know them in person, right? You can't just go to their house, or you can't just call their parents, you know, it's a bit harder. However, you can always check in on people, you can always just make sure everyone's alright, and there's so many ways which we will get into in like during the podcast. But yeah, I kind of wanted to start with that, but I start by talking about myself, I guess. I was a bit very awkward talking about myself. That's the thing. Like, this was an idea, but now when we've actually come to doing it, I'm like, oh god, it feels yeah, you know, I don't know, not weird, but yeah, I just haven't really talked about it. I don't really talk about this kind of stuff publicly, so it's very much of a different experience for me. I'm coming out of my comfort zone a little bit with a more serious podcast, so I'm waffling away. I'm so sorry.
No. Well, let's start off. Let's actually start off. I was going to straight up ask you why. Obviously, it's because Mental Health Day and so on. But I know you've experienced a lot of mental health issues in the past, and why did you want to talk about it on the podcast today? And
you know, yes, thank
so
you.
on.
Okay,
Yes,
there we go.
that's
Yeah,
the perfect way to start off with.
I think that's what I was waiting for, was a question. There we go. Okay, even I didn't ask one.
I knew you were waiting for it. Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know this. Once again, I don't really talk about myself personally online. I made a tweet from when we were recording this yesterday, actually, and CPK replied to it, which was quite cool and definitely gave me a bit of a boost, calling me to go. Just talking about how, like yesterday I was just having a bit of a bad mental spell with the podcast, right? Like, not the podcast. I don't, for some bizarre reason, and I'm very happy I don't care about the numbers, right? I don't care about how many views it gets. I don't care about how many subscribers I'm gaining. I don't care about how many followers I'm getting on Twitter. Like, I don't look at the stats. I look at the stats for fun, but I don't look at the stats to, like, be sad about it, right? But, like, I was a bit drained, you know? Obviously working. It's been a really tough week this week. I mean, going to Watford today kind of was the icing on the cake, but it's just been a really tough week. We've been understaffed. I've worked overtime time every day this month, and then I come home, I record the podcast, I edit the podcast. It's just constant, but I enjoy it and I love it. But obviously it can take a toll on your mental. It hasn't on me somehow, I think, because I'm running off a bit of an adrenaline rush. Also because I've had family members and I've had friends who have struggled from mental health and have done things that either didn't work or did work. Once again, I don't want to go too much into that just because this is still a Minecraft podcast, so we're going to talk about stuff and not get too deep with it. However, I have experiences, not me personally, I haven't done anything ever, but I am close with people who have, and it's always been a bit of a sucky situation. One of my best friends in secondary school suffers quite bad. I haven't talked to him in about 2 months, which is kind of my fault for not checking in. It's just one of those ones where we kind of lost contact a little bit. I don't even know if he still has the same phone number. I don't know anything because he hasn't messaged me and I haven't messaged him. But at the time during secondary school, it was tough, and I will be honest in saying he was in a very bad phase because of just obviously I'm not going to speak for him because that's his own private stuff, and I know it's still, I haven't said a name or anything, but for the sake of it, still in case somehow he's listening to this, he was going through a tough time, and and I was there to support him, but it was hard. It was hard. I had my GCSEs coming up. I had to worry about getting good grades because at the time I wanted to be an accountant, so I was worrying about doing well on my GCSEs. I was worried about doing well on all my exams, and then at the same time I was looking out for him and supporting him. I remember on Tuesdays, right, would stay in ICT for an hour extra. So I finished school at 3:30, right? I'd stay with him every Tuesday in ICT up until 5 before he goes and collects his sister, just because because he was my best friend, so I was hanging out with him. But I hated school uniform, right? The blazer really annoyed my neck. So as soon as school ended, I was always the first to leave. I was always the first to jump on the bus. I always used to go straight home, right? I was never someone to hang about. But every Tuesday in year 11, I'd spend time with him because I knew stuff was tough for him, and because I wanted to spend time with him as well. But just having experiences close with it of people just doing stuff that they regret, or nearly doing stuff that they will regret and stuff like that, is that's what made me want to kind of speak about it today, because the podcast is getting traction, right? It's growing and it's doing really, really well. We both know this just based on stuff that's happened in the last 3 days. Once again, it's going very, very well at the moment, and I thought while it's kind of on its uprise, I guess it'd be, and plus it being Movember, and I'm going to purposely call it Movember the entire podcast, is because so I thought it'd just be the perfect time to kind of talk about it all and spread awareness and kind of bring to the topic. And plus I can speak from my own experiences as well, so it's not just me speaking about other people. I am going to speak about my own experiences as well, and you can also speak about your own experiences. I think it's just a good time, and I think it's just a good topic for a podcast to kind of do a more serious one,
Yes, definitely. Well, going in from that, what sort of beyond, you've talked about a lot of other people's struggle with mental health. You yourself have had struggles with mental health. How's that been? How have you dealt with that in the past, and what has it been like?
It feels so weird being on the interviewer side. Oh my god, you're doing really well, AJ. Thank you. Jeez,
thank you.
We didn't actually plan this. We should have probably planned the fact that you was going to ask me questions, but you're cooking. Holy. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, mini AJX appreciation. I say cooking. You're asking me mental health. You're cooking with the questions there. Okay. Ignore me. I am waffling. This is going to be a waffling podcast. So I was a very energetic, very open, very happy kid. I always was, right? Nothing made me nervous. It was so strange. I didn't get my mum always tells me and shows me pictures of me just doing the most. Once when I was younger, when I was things. So basically, we used to have a rack on our fireplace, right? And when I was younger, apparently I kept pulling at the rack, and and every single day I'd go out to it and they'd tell me stop. And then one day I ended up pulling it off the rack off the fireplace. It was like a protection rack to stop me from getting to it, and I ended up pulling it off. And as soon as I pulled it off, I never went anywhere near the fireplace again. I was such a gremlin. I was such a gremlin child. But then when it came to year 7, I don't know what happened. I was completely fine in year 6. I was great in year 6. I was even great when I went to the induction day. But when it came to year 7, I would be sick every morning. I would be nervous every morning. It wasn't actual physical sick. We touched on this on last week's podcast, but we're going to go into more depth of it on this one. It's I used to be stupidly unwell, right? I'd throw up foam every morning. I'd be coughing. I'd be gagging. I'd go to school and I'd be unwell up until 10 p.m. School started at about 8, and I remember I had a learning mentor. mentor. They're called learning mentors. He was for my nerves and stuff like that. And I still remember like the smell of his coffee every morning. It was so strong. I'm a barista, all right, and I have never smelled coffee that strong before that I've made. Like this dude, and he didn't help with the sickness at all, right? And he was an alright guy. Like he became a bit bad in year 8 just because of other stuff that I can't talk about. No, he didn't do anything wrong. I'm not trying to say that. Just like he wasn't as supportive. He was more supportive to my bully, which we'll get into talking about that as well. So I used to just be unwell every morning. I used to be sick. It got so bad to the point where we had to get a hospital appointment, had to get bloods. We went through this big phase of just trying to find out what was wrong with me because we couldn't. And in the end, it was just like, he's just making himself sick every morning. Which looking back on it, I kind of was like, it was out of my control. Like I wasn't purposely making myself sick, but I was making myself sick because that's what my brain was doing. My brain was like, you're nervous, to the thing is, I can't even explain because I knew nothing was going to go wrong. On some of the days I knew everything was going to go absolutely great, but still my brain would be like, today's going to be a bad day. You're going to feel sick today because you're nervous about something, right? And then it also didn't help the fact that at the start of year 7 I was great, but obviously as you can tell by the podcast, I've always been a bit of a chatterbox. My nickname in primary school was Chatterbox Charlie. So starting year 7 to kind of help with the nerves, obviously, you watched High School Musical, you thought everything was going to be all dandy and happy and shit. It's not to scare anyone. If there is somehow anybody who hasn't started something yet, which I think we looking at the stats anyways, we are listened to by literally 18 plus more than anything actually. It's obviously easy to fake your age, but like it's not dandy and it's not happy. So I was obviously this really happy guy. I was really talkative, and it helped with the nerves up until I started getting bullied, and that was a bad time. I've talked about this publicly as well. It got so bad to the point where actually at one point the two people who were bullying me, they made a video on YouTube, and they only mentioned my name. They didn't show a picture of me or anything like that, and they were talking about how horrible I am. They were just bullying in a YouTube video, and a YouTube video got like 1,000 views. And bearing in mind, this is 2013. This is 2013 YouTube video getting 1,000 views. Like, so I wasn't gonna do anything, and then my mum ended up downloading the video, saving it to a USB at the time, and then we reported it. But that's just how bad it got, right? And at the end of year 7, I still remember. I'm not saying names for a reason here, but he walked up to me and like pushing me, right? I put my hand out and I slapped his face. I was 13 years of age. I wasn't a fighter, right? I used to come home and play Call of Duty, right? I didn't know what I was doing, and he slapped me back, and then it almost led into a fight. But that was the first time I defended myself. And then up until like year 9, year 10, I was still, even year 10, like at this point I'm 15 years old and I'm still nervous every morning. I've kind of got it under control a little bit. Like I'm not throwing up so much anymore, but I'm still coughing. I'm still nervous to go to school just because my brain was telling me always like you're feeling nervous, and I'm like, but I'm not feeling like how I always explain it, and only if you've experienced it you'll be able to relate. Is like I physically was not feeling nervous, but my body was. Yes. And it's like So I'm kind of just having a big story time here, but obviously after this, if you have any questions, please ask away. But
no, of course.
And then come year 11, everything was fine. Like I was great. I still got bullied because I had really bad dandruff. I also got somehow bullied for my surname, which I'm not going to leak, but I somehow got bullied for my surname. Which is it actually isn't even it's not like a bullyable. I don't know how to explain this, right? Not that any surname is bullyable, but it's just not one of those ones where you can make a joke out of it. Just people and anything, right? But I got badly bullied because of my dandruff. It used to flare up very bad when I was stressed. So obviously GCSE time, my dandruff went very, very bad, and people saw it as an opportunity to bully me. And then even in year 11, I nearly got into a fight. I've talked about this story on stream. I will give you a quick rundown because it is a bit of a longish one. Some dude was looking for a fight. I put my hands up and I said, I don't want to fight you. I'm not going to do anything. Then he reaches out and he punches me right in my temple. And it hurt, right? And I kept my hands up and I said, I'm not going to fight you. So I don't want to fight you, so we don't need to. Bearing in mind at this point, I'm about to go on a history trip to Germany. And I said, if you're getting any fights or in trouble, you can't go. So I put my hands up, backed off slowly into the camera. Just as I'm in view of the camera, that's when he swings and punches me. And then I go to breakfast. Everyone's like, "Oh, you're right," laughing at me. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And people actually were respecting me because I took it like a champ, right? Which was the first time that happened. And ended up going home sick because I started feeling unwell. I told my mum about it, so she then took me to the hospital, right? And it was all a big brain because her taking me to the hospital meant that I had to get like a consult for being punched in the temple. They said, "Oh, you're nauseous, take some medicine," even though I said I was fine. And because of that, he got into a shit ton of trouble. I didn't need to go to the hospital. I was completely fine, but the reason my mum took me there was to eventually file a report. They caught it on camera because I backed out with my hands up, and then yeah, kind of, it's very messy this, sorry, but I'm kind of just running down my whole secondary days, but I have more to add to it. But have you got any questions so far?
Well, I was actually going to say that I always had the exact same experience throughout my school, including the idea of getting hurt in the temple and then the other person getting into crap because of it.
Really?
Like, to that point. Yeah, back in year 8, I was quite a violent child, I'll say, which I know doesn't come across now. But yeah, I got into a lot of trouble, lots of fights, lots of different stuff. Yeah, exactly. One guy was picking on my friends, and I stood up to them. They were in like year 10, year 9, and he headbutted me. And then I got sent home, and almost the exact same thing happened, where he gets in trouble because of all of it. But to the point of like, my anxiety has also managed to manifest in me throwing up a lot when it came to the exam period and so on. I got very sick, partly because my body shut down, because my anxiety meant that I couldn't fight off any illnesses, so I got very ill beforehand. And I also had the same, where I was sick every day before school, and I still get very sick when very anxious, and can throw up.
Yep, same.
And yeah, even to the point of bullying and trying to stand up for yourself and then just getting in trouble because of it. It can all be very difficult. So I appreciate you putting all this out there.
I do want to add quickly.
I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Just to add to it quickly, sorry, before I ask the question, is like, I know you didn't mean it in a sense, but just to clear up, like, my parents have always been very, very supportive of me, right? The only time they ever said anything to me, or like even partially showed a bit of annoyance, was because I was getting so bad to the point where I was going to pull my like lining in my stomach. My lining in my stomach, everything goes to shit, right? And that's only if you throw up too much. And so at that point, it was kind of partial worry annoyance. It's to the point where like, you need to stop doing this, otherwise you are going to severely injure yourself, and it's going to you're going to be scarred for life, right? You're going to scar like the insides, and it's something I can control. But
my parents are also very supportive as well, I should say.
So both of our parents were, which is very, like, lucky, which is so lucky, because it's very rare. But there was never a label on it, right? And that's the one thing I want to add, and it's because we talked about it last week, and I wanted to mention on this one, is like, there was never ever a label on what was wrong with me, right? It was just, you're nervous. You know, it was always called you're nervous up until like we got into year 11, or no, but I started work actually, and this was when I was 18, and then eventually I turned around and said, I have anxiety. And even my parents said it, like, you're just anxious. Like, that's not them saying I don't have anxiety, it's the same thing, they just worded it like that. And it's like, I could have went and got it diagnosed, and if I had gone and got it diagnosed, it would have been diagnosed I would have been diagnosed with anxiety, but I didn't want to. I've always stated that I always said I have anxiety, but it's undiagnosed, right? So it's not, in quotation marks, official, but it's definitely there. And it's like, you know, I deal with it now better, which we'll get into talking about. We're kind of going through the years, I guess. We're going to both talk about our school lives, which we just did, and then we'll get into talking about like our car and lives and stuff like that. But, you know, there wasn't a label. I didn't have something. I couldn't turn around and go, I has anxiety. I was like, oh yeah, I just get nervous. Oh yeah, I just throw up every morning. Like, it was something that wasn't there, and now it has a label. It makes me feel better. And this is what we talked about last week with the asexuality and the DCD. Like, obviously you were diagnosed with DCD early on, but with you being asexual, like, you felt a lot better once it had a label, because you had something to turn to. You knew that because it has a label, other people have it too. And with the nerves thing, I thought I was the only person in secondary school, especially in year 7, who was nervous, who was scared, who was feeling. And like, you know, my parents were really supportive, but because there was never the label of anxiety on it, I didn't know anything like that actually. And in all honesty, in year 8, I was very like ignorant to it. Like, when we learned about anxiety and stuff like that, I said like, oh yeah, I don't have that, I just get nervous. But now looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, I know I did definitely have that. You know, I've always had it. But ever since I was 13.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Well, I was going to say, how did you sort of deal with these things? You've said, you know, having a label was obviously amazing for you, and understanding that, you know, you're not the only one, and just you know, having a label is massive. But what other sort of things did you do to deal with the anxiety, and like through school? I mean, it's a long period of your life through like secondary school into college and so on. So what did you sort of do to help yourself there?
So I actually didn't do anything.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
So for some bizarre reason, right, and I still have it to this day, and I will in Birmingham as well. I know for well I have it in March. Not speaking into existence, I just know it's going to happen. For some bizarre reason, the entire build up, I'll feel nervous, but then as soon as I get get there, I feel fine. So like when it come year 9, it was more of a mental game, right? My mum is like she likes like crystals, stuff like that, right? And at the time it was feng shui, and I've never really been into it myself. I mean, I guess I technically am, because I do have crystals, and I have like these jars on my desk. And as much as people like might not believe in that stuff and might be like, oh, it's all silly, right? I hadn't shaken these jars in a year. And apparently you're meant to shake the jars. My mum, she said, when was the last time? I said, a year ago. So I shook them 5 days ago, AJX, right? Look at what's happened in these last 5 days, okay? Yeah? So I believe in it. Not that I do it myself. I kind of just follow her. Like I have crystals that I carry in my pocket to work for like anxiety, for safety, for health, all that kind of stuff. But so yeah, come year 9, she's into all of that kind of stuff. And I kind of start tricking my brain into like getting better with it. Like I don't know how I did it, and I wish I did know, but it's more just like, you're not nervous, all right? You're just being silly. And it's like, it's me kind of convincing myself, which is I wish I was being silly. Like I know I had anxiety, but I was still being silly, and I will stand by the fact that like, I'm not saying being anxious is silly, but me personally, I didn't need to be, right? Because everything was going fine. Come year 9, I was still getting bullied, but I still had a good amount of friends. So it became a thing of my entire morning and my entire journey to school was like nerves. I'd like be coughing. I'd be like, in the mornings where I left, I'd like gag a little bit, and then once I got to school, I'd feel completely fine. I'd feel great. And that was year 9, year 10, year 11. Then college, it went bad again. I remember I used to go into the toilets at the train station every single morning and be like coughing, feel sick. Mainly also because just my schedule as a whole for college was just horrible. But like that was bad. Even into work, when I got my first job at a warehouse, I used to be sick every morning. I was 18 at this point. But it got slowly better over time as I started content creation. It got better once, because obviously I was earning money from content creation, and I was doing well and I had connections. But when it got very, very good, and I'm skipping a bit ahead, we're going to go back, but I'm just like saying, because of the whole story, might as well link it all into one. And we'll talk about this more later on. When it got very, very good, which is now, was when I brought the podcast back, or when I started the podcast. Like today, for example, right? Me last year, I wouldn't have been able to go today. I would have been thrown up, I would have been sick, I would have had a stomachache, which I did have a stomachache this morning, but it would have been 10 times worse, and I wouldn't have been able to do today. When I went to Paris in France, I didn't get sick, but I got like a little bit of a cough and a gag on the train, but I was fine, which was good, because like one time a day would have been very bad. And even in Birmingham, I know I'm going to be fine on the entire build up. Obviously I'm going to be partially nervous, because like meeting you is going to be fun, like nervous, happy, nervous, right? But yeah, it's just talking to people and stuff, which we're going to backtrack again, and we'll get into talking about the podcast soon. But yeah, that's essentially just like how I've dealt with it. It's kind of just tricking, or not even tricking myself, like playing mind games with my own mind, as in to say like, yeah, you are fine, like you are good.
I understand. It could be really rough, especially going into college and so on. I mean, with the stones, I actually use stones for sleep. And I don't fully believe it, but it's the just the idea that they might, right? And it helps me not dream and not have nightmares and so on. So I thought that was.
Well, it's always worked for my mum, so that's why I. What about you? Because you're definitely a lot better than you used to be. So how have you dealt with it?
I think it's a lot to do with growth. I was as similar to you. Obviously, I'm a lot older, so I've had more time than you.
Way older, yeah.
But like coming off 18 years old and so on, the anxiety and so on was very, very difficult to deal with. And we'll get to sort of stuff we sort of talked about last week. I came off two bad relationships in a row. I just started work. At that point, my depression was at all-time high. My anxiety was at all-time high. So that was very difficult, and it has just been about spending time working through it, understanding that I'm getting better, giving myself the pat on the back that I need about how much better I have been doing by just processing stuff, being with people. I started my whole YouTube stuff to just meet more people, and I have a lot of very close friends, you included. I have a girlfriend because of it. So doing stuff that I think think a lot of doing something where you can meet new people, create a community for yourself is important. And that doesn't have to be YouTube. That can be a theatre group or a book club or football, going to football with people, five-a-side and so on. So I think that is really, doing work has helped me massively, even though I don't work with many people. The people that I did, it's boosted my confidence massively. And, I would have never been able to do this when I was 18 or younger. I just would not have been able to talk to so many new people constantly. And the fact is now has been amazing. And I think you were getting to that with your with the podcast. It's a similar situation where you're doing something that means that you're meeting new people and progressing your confidence and making yourself less nervous. And sometimes it comes with age, and people will say, see people that say it doesn't get better, and that is up to you. It is up to you if it gets better. Obviously, mental health is really difficult to struggle with, and I've spent many days in my bed not being able to do anything. So it's up to you is a big thing to ask, but small steps matter. Anything matters. You matter is the most important thing. So yeah, any small steps matter hugely, and don't listen to people that say it doesn't get better, because you personally can make it better, and hopefully we're showing that in this podcast. From there.
Oh yeah, go on.
Go ahead.
No.
I was going to ask you a question. So
sorry. Before you do, then
it.
Yeah, it's just that. It's like obviously it doesn't get better for everyone, right? And we're not going to be closed-minded to that. It gets better for 75% of people, right? And it's also only gets better if you work for it, right? For instance, my mum has always said to me, there's very much it's not this, not the anxiety, but just stuff in general is very mind over matter, right? And it's putting stuff out there. For instance, if I wake up in the morning and I go, I'm gonna have a shit day today, I've put it out there, right? I've already started with a bad mindset, so I'm gonna think everything's gonna go shit, so it's also once again just playing mental games with your own mind. Wake up in the morning, when I used to feel sick, I used to be like, but everything's gonna be good, and then my body would be like, no, but you're gonna throw up. I'm gonna like, no, but I don't care, today's gonna be a good day. And the day was good, and I'd constantly be good. I forgot to add a funny little story that I've only just remembered. Back in year 7, right, there used to be this ad on the TV on I think it was Cartoon Network or something, and there was this egg ad, right? And I couldn't watch that ad. Every single time the ad came up on the screen, I'd throw up on the spot. I don't know why. I don't know. There was nothing wrong with the ad. The ad wasn't discussing anything. It was kids ad promoting an egg or something. But every single time it came on the screen, I just couldn't watch it. I had to shut my eyes. It was unbearable. And I think once again, that's also kind of the mind thing of I just associated that ad with you're gonna throw up. And back to the original point there, it's not always gonna get better, right? Some people's anxiety is so bad and it can't. But mine has gotten better with age. It's part of just growing up, and I also just have this mentality of I don't really give a shit. Online, that doesn't apply, right? Online, I'm very careful with what I say. I'm very careful what I do, mainly because I have to be, but also just because it's being considerate. But in person, right, when I'm serving customers, I'm not rude, I'm very polite, but I match energy, right? So if you're going to be arrogant to me, I'm being arrogant to you. If you're going to be nice to me, I'm being nice to you, right? I've developed a very much I don't give a shit attitude, and that helps as well. Not caring, because I don't care about for instance with insomnia, right? On the Saturday, I'm going to wear a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle t-shirt, and then on the Sunday, I'm going to wear a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle t-shirt. And I'm going to wear those same Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle t-shirts to every single convention. I don't care if someone turns around and goes, oh, you wear that to every single convention. I have a washing machine. I don't care what you think. Right? I like these t-shirts. So that has also helped, just having the mentality of I don't really care. I'm just going to do my own thing and be happy with
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear. I guess from here, so you sort of talked about your experience when you were in high school and sort of going into college. What about when you sort of went out into the working world? You obviously started making videos as well, with the whole online presence. You were huge for a very big portion of time, and still are, obviously. But on Bedrock, you're obviously very big. So how did that sort of intertwine with your mental health and so on?
So I actually started making content once I left secondary school. So I was 16. I started my YouTube channel, essentially. And I was doing partial commands, and I was doing partial CubeCraft, or just gaming videos. And when I started my first job, which was the warehouse job, in November of 2021, I was making £500 a month from YouTube tutorials. I was making between 300 and 500, right? I was making a good amount of money for YouTube at the time. I just hit 20,000 subscribers, like 1 million views. I was doing really, really well for myself. Then I started work. It helped a lot because I was already making money. I was already confident. I was like, work was good. It was mind-numbing. It was a warehouse job. Probably wasn't. Warehouse jobs aren't the best of jobs. I don't recommend them. They're nice if you're young, but once you start getting older, there's a lot of old people there, right? There's a lot of people, so make a lot of friends who are older. It's just not good for your mental. It's mind-numbing, it's draining, and it's tiring. I was starting at 6 a.m, getting an Uber every morning, and that's finishing at 4 p.m. and getting a bus home. I'd come home, I'd stream, I'd work on content. That was my life, right? I know what I'm doing now, funny enough, about the streaming. But so I was unwell every morning, and then in December, I met my girlfriend, current girlfriend, and things were looking a bit better from there. I was still nervous and stuff like that, but obviously meeting her, and then it's a long old process of her staying more because she was working the same job as me, all that kind of stuff. And then we ended up getting together in January, but we met in December. And like, you know, ever since that, it was nice. And then I started a job, a different job, which was nights. I won't say where it was, but it was also being barista, but it was just nighttime, like late night. When I say night shift, I don't mean 12 o'clock at night. I just mean like afternoon to nighttime. And I stopped. At this point, I'd started the podcast because I was at the warehouse until like May, and then I stopped the podcast once I started this job. And my mental was thriving at this point. Actually, I was doing amazing. I was happy. I was doing well. I was earning a good amount of money. I was working all the hours in the world. But I didn't actually feel nervous while I was at that job, come to think of it, because I loved that job. But I left in January, and this year just as a whole has been a bit of a rough one up where I started this new job last month. It's been quite good, but I was still nervous. You know, I was still feeling, like I said, when I went to Paris to TwitchCon, getting on that train, and I was like a bit nervous, anxious. But like even this morning, I felt quite nervous, but I did it. One time a day, I would have very, very much struggled to do it. But today it was for like 5 minutes, and then I was fine as soon as I walked out my door. And it's like, it just improves over time, you know? And I've just done better over time. But there's one specific topic during this entire time that I've missed out on purposely in between college and work was COVID.
Oh, yes.
So it's flipping it on you, and you can start this topic, AJX. I feel like I've been talking way too much and I need to take a breather. How did lockdown affect you?
I think the main thing is I'd made so much progress before lockdown, and sort of that progress is halted. I was not furloughed. I did not have to go into the office. We did move mid-lockdown, unfortunately, my family. Not mid-lockdown, after lockdown, I should point out, but mid between the lockdowns and so on. And I also moved office, and I had to do a lot for that as well. So there's a lot of stress going on. But that whole year is such a blur to me in terms of I didn't really have anyone at that time as a friend or so on. I didn't have anyone in a support network bar my family, which was obviously incredibly important. But yeah, I didn't have those people right in my life during that time, so it was a difficult time. I watched the whole of The Office. I remember that very clearly. I think I watched a whole of a lot of other TV shows, and it was very much there was just not anything, and it did stop the progress I had made. And I did have to regroup and make that progress again. I'm lucky to have such a lovely, wonderful family, but being locked and to live quite far out in the countryside and so on. I'm not in a big city, not in a small apartment, which I'm sure a lot of people were.
Me right now.
Yeah. But like, there's so many other stuff that it could have hugely changed how I could have been able to deal with it. But I did have the family network there, which was the main important thing to me, and that definitely pushed me onwards, I think, and helped me through it, because it was a difficult time for so many people, and I was incredibly lucky with what happened for me.
Oh, so you were actually pretty much kind of alright.
It stopped my progress in terms of my anxiety and so on. I could probably be even better than now, but it spurred on me to make content, to find friends, because I didn't have any friends or anything, but lucky enough I have a lot of siblings and so on. So yeah, I can say I was all right. I can't really be like,
that's completely fine.
Yeah.
Me on the other hand,
Yes. Yes, yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, so I was actually alright too. I was actually fine.
Yeah.
Just I had moments. COVID hits, and I am on my second year of college, and
Yes.
as far as I'm aware, and I remember making a Snapchat post. Obviously, me quirky at the time. I think at this point I'm 17 years old or something along those lines, right? So I'm quirky. I'm goofy. I'm sarcastic. I used to be very badly sarcastic, and I mean I still am. But I feel to myself online, right? Because people wouldn't understand the sarcasm, and as in the sense of just like I was always sarcastic, so that's why people understood it. But so I made a Snapchat post. I don't see why people are so scared of this. The government are just spitting nonsense, which they did. I feel like this government were making it a lot more scary than it had to be. I will stand, not getting into politics or anything like that, but I'll just stand on hill to like it could have been done better, and I think everyone agrees they could have been dealt with a lot better because it was in other countries. But I made like this Snap post. Oh, it's not even that scary. You know, they've closed because this was the day they made me go all the way to college for like 10 minutes, pay for travel and everything like that, just to tell me that we're going to be working from home for the next few months, right? And like I'll pass over in like 3 months, it'll die down like everything else does. It didn't do that, but you know, so at this point I'm pretty chill, pretty alright. You know, I'm working from home. Shit, this is great. I can work on content more. Slowly I started getting less into education and more into content, which I actually talked about on the Aaron podcast that came out on Friday from when this is coming out. So if you want to hear mine and Aaron's experience with COVID and lockdown, definitely listen to that. He had a good point on it as well. But so I kind of fall more out of love with education, just about passed my exams. I then went on to do my exams, move on to my third year after this, and ended up failing all my exams and just giving up on accounting. So it's just not something I wanted to do anymore. So stuck behind an office, and I'm very grateful I made that decision, which I'll get into in a minute. But backtracking, so I'm at the height of my career now with commentary videos. I'm making tutorial videos. I think I've actually just moved away from tutorial videos, into mainly commentary. And then something happens, and I'm not going to talk about it, but just something happened online, right? And you nothing too bad, but I'm indoors all day. I'm not going out. When I do go out, I'm walking my dog. My family is still working because they were all, what was the word for it? They were all crucial workers. Huh?
Oh, crucial. Yep, I get you.
There's a word for it. There was a word for it. I can't remember.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Today also the worst. I'm at home all day. We've just got my dog, actually. My dog, we got Shadow in March, and that's when COVID hit in April. So, you know, like, luckily enough, I had him, and he was a massive help, just having his company, but also having to put up with a brand new dog who's shitting and pissing everywhere, and it's only me doing it because I'm the only one at home. That was tough. But so this was 2020 I'm talking about right now, and then something happens in like May or something like that, just after my birthday, and just my mental health goes to shit. And it did, for like, just something bad happened, and then it picks back up, and we go out of the first lockdown. My brother moves out, I get the room to myself, buy a PC, buy a massive desk, living life, and then just being indoors all the time again. And like college was doing badly. I was going in every now and then for exams. I just didn't want to do it. I was going to bed at 5 a.m. in the morning and waking up at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, waking up, walking my dog, then spending the entire night on the PC. It was great. It also wasn't good for an 18-year-old boy. An 18-year-old shouldn't be doing that, you know, and an 18-year-old shouldn't have to be doing that. I could have done way better, but it was just me being lazy and me kind of just enjoying being at home, which is fair. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I only really had one bad mental spell, and I dealt with it pretty well. I was tired all the time and stuff like that, but I was at the height of my content career, and obviously we come out of COVID, come out of lockdown, sorry. I got COVID in December 2021, funny enough. So 2 days before, I went and got a test. I knew at this point, I think. And then on Christmas morning, I wake up at 8 o'clock. I wake up at 7:40, lay in bed for a few minutes just to chill out. At 8 o'clock, I shout out to my mum and dad, "Merry Christmas!" They're like, "Merry Christmas!" And then ding, you have tested positive for COVID. You have to isolate for 7 days. On Christmas Day. And that, not even talking about from me here, that made my mum quite sad, because they'd gone out the night before. We was all going to go out for a game of pool and for drink. Mum doesn't drink, but we was all going out, right? Yeah. And they didn't want to go anymore because I couldn't. I knew I was positive at this point. And I said, "No, go." And apparently it made my mum really sad, because I opened my presents in my room. I had dinner in my room. They said I could go and sit with them, but my mum doesn't have the best of health, right? I didn't want to risk anything. So I isolated myself. But also, you know, but it also turned out quite positive, because that kind of boosted the relationship with current girlfriend. I say current girlfriend, you get what I mean? They're my only ever girlfriend. just so people don't know if it's girlfriend at the time or his current girlfriend. And so, you know, it all paid off, but overall COVID just wasn't the best time. And I know a lot of stuff spiked, like you know, abuse towards partners spiked during that time, mental health issues, but like COVID, like lockdown was a very, very horrible time, and I know it affected a shit ton of people, and I think it affected people in ways that still affect them now. Like, I mean, even me, sometimes I still have like flashbacks to what happened, and I still see it, you know, and it's like, oh, and it gives me like a bit of a nervous thing, but it doesn't happen so much anymore because I've learned to just be like, oh well, it happened, it was in the past. And people, and like, by the way, don't try and go hunting for it because you're not going to find it. You're not going to find what happened because it was privately. It wasn't anything public. It still sucked, you know. It was privately online, if that makes sense. But yeah, overall, that was kind of that whole thing.
To deal with all that stuff and to sort of get over it, I should say a big help for me was I've had therapy. Whether it's to be, I've had therapy for my insomnia and my anxiety specifically, and they've been huge helps to me in sort of recovering and getting. Well, not recovering. You don't really recover, I should say. But
feeling better.
Yeah, we're not. We said this at the start of the podcast. We're sometimes going to say things wrong. But yeah, feeling better, sort of getting better. And I think a big thing that one of my therapists said is always giving yourself the credit for when you've gotten over a difficult time. It can be extremely, extremely difficult to deal with those situations and to sort of get to a point. And you know, if you like you could, the world can feel like it's crushing down on you, and it is in a way. So you know, give yourself the credit that you deserve for those situations. Definitely always give yourself that sort of credit for, you know, progressing, for dealing with situations, for getting out of situations that can be really difficult. I once was going through a really difficult period, and what I did was just ask my friend to come stay with me for a few days, and that honestly had such a huge effect for me that I can't even like it was life-changing just being able to have him there sort of help with those emotions and so on. So yeah, a lot of this stuff, you know, we want to talk about our mental health and so on, but we also want to say, you know, that there's ways and things you can do to help with mental health and so on. I just want to get that across. So yeah, COVID for you was a very, you know,
weird. It was just a weird time, really.
It's a weird period. I think for everyone it's such a weird period. But you know, when you're dealing with mental health, you know, we had experiences there that were nasty. But obviously we had a nice support network and so on,
exactly,
which really helped us. So yeah, that could be massive.
In mind. Oh yeah, sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask a question, so if you have more to add, then
no, I don't have any more to add.
I was going to say, you mentioned earlier about like toxic exes. I've touched on it a little bit last week. Can you, would you, if you like, as much as you want to go into it, just like kind of share that whole experience?
I'll try not to go into it too much. Basically, I was in a 3-year-long relationship. And they got cheated on numerous amount of times in that relationship.
Sorry.
And then no problem. And then I was in a shorter relationship, but I got cheated on by my girlfriend with my best friend at the time.
Wow.
So that was difficult. No, and that was straight after. So after that, I sort of developed a lot of. We sort of talked about it last time. I developed sort of coping mechanisms and so on. And well, one of them was it wasn't a coping mechanism. Obviously, I felt myself go towards more not finding other people attractive, and so on and so forth, because of these experiences. And they, you know, they're so hugely painful for me. And like I've had a few other experiences that have caused, you know, what I'm going to say, traumatized me of stuff. And you know, dealing with the trauma that has come from those situations is always really difficult. And like that's one thing that I can't say has got easier for me is the trauma of these sort of situations. I'm just talking about that one, but there's been a few experiences that I've had that have left me very scarred and so on, and you know, just not being able to deal with anything properly. So that's one thing I can say has been sort of very difficult in terms of, and I don't think think it'll ever be perfect in terms of learning to get in a relationship again. Trusting people is a big issue for me because of this sort of stuff. You know, you give your heart to people, and you know it turns out to be the wrong decision, and so on. And I won't go into the other ones because it's a bit too serious for the podcast.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I'm just going around the bushes of them because
just say it doesn't. Don't feel forced to say any more than what you said. That's enough to kind of get the example across.
Well, yeah, I was going to say sometimes for those it just can't get easier. You just got to put in mechanisms to help yourself to try and avoid what has the trauma. And sometimes you can't. I completely understand that. But you know, where you can, try and distract your mind. Try and make sure you don't come into contact with stuff that will trigger that trauma and so on. I think trauma can come in all shapes and sizes. Obviously, back when the wars happened, it was pretty much a focus on the fact that, you know, it was
post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. But nowadays it can literally it can be from losing a loved one. It can be from the example I gave. All this sort of stuff can add on and just be hugely horrible to deal with. So again, give yourself credit for what you do. Give yourself the understanding that it's going to be difficult. And you know, where you can, give yourself that support network. For traumatic events, it's very difficult to do that, but where you can, definitely go ahead and figure out how the people you trust that you can trust in these situations to talk about this stuff. So yeah.
Obviously, this isn't scripted. This isn't a scripted podcast. We are just talking, and obviously, we're being a more of a serious topic. You know, we kind of have to think about our words a little bit more. So we're kind of just talking away. And I want to say it now, and I was going to save it to the end of the podcast. I'm going to say it now. This podcast is purposely messy because mental health is messy, right? Like it is, and it's not clean. It's not you do this to fix this, right? Because it's different ways, different mechanisms. But you know, like we're just having a chat, definitely. Really. Just normally the podcast, of course, we're having a chat between us, but it's also made as a podcast, right? As me and you, we're just having a chat. You know, it's not even like we're not really doing a podcast right now. We are just talking to each other about mental health and just talking about our experiences, and like it's purposely done like this because it's a different type to just talk about our past and stuff like that, stuff that I haven't said before, and that's why it's a different type of podcast where it isn't made to be a podcast. You know, it's like it's just, and we would have mentioned this in the pre-intro anyways. I'm gonna write one up, but but there's like a few more things that I wanted to say and mention, but in all honesty, I can't really like remember. I mean, talking about like our own experiences, we're gonna talk a little bit more about stuff. But is there any other questions you had, AJX, or anything else you wanted to mention?
No, I think I've nothing that I can like fully remember by.
How are you doing right now?
Deep, but you know, it's nice to share with a friend and yourself, along with you know, the podcast. I think it's important to get out stuff like this, especially during Mental Health Week month and day.
Exactly. And you know this anyways, AJX, but if there's ever anything on your mind or ever anything you want to talk about, I'm always here. You know, I'm always open to listen. So.
Of course, same to you. Yes.
Thank you. With that being said, then, not the end of the podcast. I know it sounds like I'm about to do an outro. I'm not. Yeah. Let's talk about how we can support each other. So, if you're listening to this and you want to know how you can support mental health, support your friends, anything like that, we'll first start by talking about charities. So, I'm not going to list a bunch of charities. Obviously, this month is Movember. I'm technically taking part in it because I'm purposely not shaving and my beard looks very scruffy right now. But you know, I mean, I sent a picture earlier. You've seen it, so you know, it's a bit messy, but like it's Movember. I want to go buy that. One charity I will talk about, however, is Papyrus. My dad has done London to Brighton very many times. He's also done he's done the London Paris cycling, by the way. Like he does the London to Brighton pretty much every single year, and I don't think he did it this year. He did do it this year, but I mean the charity this year. But he mainly does Papyrus. I mention this because obviously I've had trouble in family with like just health and men's mental health. So there's a bunch of charities. You can find a bunch online to support, especially during this month. I'm sure people will be sharing a bunch. So please, if you can can always do, like, if you're a streamer or a content creator, do streams to raise money for it. You know, obviously there's a lot going on in the world right now, and I understand that. And also just the cost of living crisis makes it a lot harder to donate. But, you know, if you can, please do. And it's not even just that, right? Reach out to your friends, talk to your friends. You know, like, if you're struggling mentally, I know it's hard to open up, but like, everybody has that person they trust, right? And that's not always your family. Like, luckily I can turn to my mum. I'm very fortunate I can turn to my mum or my dad, my brother or my girlfriend and talk to them about how I feel. But like, I don't always turn to them because I want to talk to other people as well. Like, sometimes it's nice to hear from somebody else. For instance, like now talking to AJX, it's nice to talk to him about his experiences and talk to like thing and just have a little chat. And like, it's made me feel better. And, you know, I hope it's made you feel better as well. But I feel a lot better after this podcast about everything because, you know, we've been able to talk about it. And like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you like are worried or like you're not feeling too well, or like, even like I said at the start of the podcast, reach out to your friends. If you're listening to this right now, message your friends. Even if you talked yesterday, send them a message, ask them if they're all right. Don't nag them, don't be annoying like, are you sure, are you really sure? Like, just be like, hi, how are you, just checking in, hope you're doing well. That's all you need to do. Just check up on them and make sure they're doing well, you know, because not everybody talks about it and not everybody wants to share it, and they might if you reach out to them. So but yeah, bunch of charities, bunch of different ways of talking to people. And once again, if you're not feeling too well mentally, there's a bunch of helplines that you call. You have your close friends you can talk to, all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to turn around and be like, you can DM me, because like we're
not professionals. And
exactly.
It's really like, it can be really difficult. I should say that's another traumatic thing for me, has been having to help my friends through mental health. So I have a quite a lot of trauma to do with that as well. So, you know, you make sure to seek out professionals. There's tons of helplines. I've been trying to, you know, get some numbers up, but I think the main thing to do is make sure, because it'll be different in different countries, make sure to look up your own country's mental health line. And we are not professionals, so make sure to find actual professionals to help you rather than going to content creators and so on, because whilst we want you all to get better, we do not have the skill set required and sort of the mental fortitude required to help you.
And like, I guess just to add to that as well, like kind of building on what I was saying as well, is like, it's also just a case of I'm very busy, right? And I'm not, that's not to mean that I don't care, but also, you know, like it as much as creators want their viewers to be all right and they want their viewers to be happy and stuff like that, it can be a little bit hard when a viewer comes and reaches out to you in trauma dumps when you don't know anything about them. It's not meaning to sound bad, and I'm speaking on my own behalf here, and I don't mind saying this. So like, please don't trauma dump on me, because I don't know how to deal with it, right? And it's like, you know, like, I'm with my friends, of course. If you're one of my friends and I talk to you and you're listening to this, reach out, okay? Because I've talked to you and I know you and I can be helpful to you. But no offense to the viewers, but like, please reach out to someone who's close to you, right? Obviously, reaching out to me and being like, like, you know, this has really helped, this podcast has really helped, thank you so much, that's completely fine. But please don't reach out and trauma dump, or please don't ask for like advice and stuff like that, because I'm not a professional, firstly, and secondly, just it put me in a bit of an uncomfortable position. And I'm gonna say that, just stop it now, right? It's not meant to sound rude, but it is the truth. So but yeah, I mean, just reach out to loved ones, even family, just checking on your family
and professionals, both loved ones and professionals. It can be so. I mean, I'm
more just mean in the sense of like, just walk downstairs right now and just say hi to your mum or your carer. Sorry, I say your mum, or your carer, or whoever you're staying with, or like even if it's just a flatmate, go and say hi to them, ask how they're doing, ask how their day was, make conversation, check in on people, the people that you care.
Support networks are so important.
Exactly. I feel like there's a few more things that we could have talked about, but like I said, this is just more of a conversation podcast. It wasn't planned out, there's no notes. I literally have a Word document in front of me, and the only thing I have on is papyrus, so I didn't forget the charity I wanted to talk about. But like, you know, once again, just because it's Men's Mental Health Month doesn't mean that if you're any other pronoun that your mental health doesn't matter. You know, it's just labeled as this. I guess it's also linked, because you mentioned about the war. It is also, you know, like War Memorial Month as well, so I think it's all kind of linked into one. But just look after yourself, you know, and hopefully like, our goal for this podcast was to sit down, talk away, waffle away, talk about our experiences, chat as if we're just two friends talking about our health, which we are, but also hopefully help out in a sense of, if you're listening to this, hopefully it's helped you, hopefully it's made you feel better, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, definitely.
Anything else you wanted to add, AJX?
Yeah, just sort of make sure to, I guess the other thing is sometimes you can't talk to a carer or someone, and make sure to get support with that as well, and through mental health, through the numbers and so on. Yeah.
Don't get lost in your own thoughts. You are your worst enemy, right? Your brain can do horrible things, so please do not let it do that.
Yeah.
There we go. Don't let your brain ruin you. There we go. Because it ruined me for a while, and it ruined AJX for a while. So speaking from two experienced people here, I guess, if you like knock it in on the head while you can, kind of thing,
Yeah.
But yeah, AJX, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a very nice conversation, and sadly Bendo couldn't be here, but it would have been great with them here as well. So, but with that being said, that brings the end of this midweek MC. But don't worry, lads. Next week's midweek MC, as long as it goes through, and as of right now, obviously, not counting chickens before they hatch, because if the person is coming on, it won't be announced on Monday, and anything can happen in between that time. However, next week's midweek MC is a lot more of a lively one, a lot more of a bright one, and even if we don't get the person on who's meant to be coming on, it's still going to be a good podcast. So we hope this has helped. We hope you've enjoyed listening. I know it's not like the best of or the most fun of podcasts, but you can still enjoy listening to it. You can still be happy, but it can still help, all that kind of stuff. And just look after yourself. We don't want to see anything happen without kind of cause like a parasocial relationship here, but you get the idea. With that being said, this brings the end of midweek MC. Thank you so much, AJX, for being an amazing co-host as per usual, especially for the 10th episode. We are 10 weeks deep already, AJX, for midweek MC.
Yes.
It's
oh my god, 10.
Crazy.
Oh.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah, thank you all for watching. Stay safe, don't eat too much bread. Peace.